What you folks are looking at here is a Russian submarine launching caliber cruise missiles, one right after the other. I thought we would start here today, based on what we know now about the Fitzgerald and the McCain, that their courses prior to their accidents tracked right over submarine cables. More than likely, they were attempting to interdict Russian submarines. Now, if you look at the internet, just in general, and I know that sounds like a silly thing to say, look at the internet, but there is no shortage of articles. Now, this most recent one that I saw talks about the cable issue specifically, but when you look into this, they have been warning about this for a year. You know, and I just really wasn't paying attention to it, to be very truthful. You know, I think the Russian thing was greatly overblown, but maybe not now. Maybe not. Because just about every article I've pulled up on this talks about Russian submarine activity around, well, this says Atlantic internet cables, but I can't imagine they're that choosy, that they would be over there, especially with the issue going on with North Korea. Absolutely they would be. And there's a lot of cables over there, especially down around Malaysia. And the idea that the Fitzgerald and the McCain, that their tracks went literally directly over these cables. And not just generally speaking, when those cables turned, the ship turned. It was the issue that actually caused the collision with the Fitzgerald, and was more than likely playing a big role in the issue with the McCain as well. And we covered that last two videos. We are still keeping an eye on the issue in Venezuela. I think one of the things that's going to dovetail it with this is that we covered about 3 videos ago the loss of our Oliver Hazard Perry class frigates. That we are now going to have this this gap in between the time when they went offline and these littoral class vessels that the Navy says are going to take their place. You look into these, we have these littoral class ships up here. Littoral basically means, for anyone who doesn't know, it's basically a term used to describe shallow water. Frigates aren't just slave to shallow water. And I know a lot of the missions that those frigates were doing, you know, had that be part of it, especially with, you know, drug interdiction down here. But if they lose the ability to track and interdict Russian submarines, which the littoral class ships don't have that ability, they just don't have it. They don't have the people, they don't have the equipment. It could be a huge problem. And there is article after article. You just watch this. Even the British are worried about this. And this is what they did in Crimea. The first thing they did was cut the cables so that the only thing going into Crimea was Russian approved information. And that's why I believe they were so successful with so few people. Huge force multiplier when you can control the information, all of the information in a region. It's what we did in Iraq. It's what any military does, is that you shut down the ability of your enemy to communicate. And this is, you know, not something that's unique to the Russians, but they have found a way to do it that heretofore I don't think the U.S. took seriously enough. And this article here talks about this particular submarine's ability to launch these UUVs, one of which can be equipped with a nuclear weapon. It can dive to depths that we can't track, radar can't penetrate to, and can basically just amble itself all by itself right up to a city, and boom. And that's all it would take. And if they had cut the cables and cut the communication lines, imagine if they could nuke a city and there wouldn't even be news going out about it. Or if they could control the news and say it was some kind of an accident at a nuclear plant, or it was, you know, they could cook up some story about maybe it was a U.S. ship that had it, or a U.S. Bomb that accidentally went off, something like that, where they could control the media coverage of it, of what exactly happened, because they cut the cables. And they could control the news about the cables being cut. They could say it was a result of the explosion. You know, It's a terrifying thing. And like I said, there is no shortage of articles that you can go read online. I could sit here and do an hour-long video reading you snippets out of these articles. But I think, and this is why they were so worried about the tracks of the Fitzgerald and the tracks of the McCain coming out, because it wouldn't have taken a lot of research to do the overlay like we did and say, look, here's where the accident happened, here's where the cable was. And it would have shown exactly what the U.S. was worried about. That's my search page, but yeah, this is from last year. This goes all the way back to January of last year. This is when it was up off Connecticut. There's a submarine base up there at New London, but this same exact ship was sitting here off of Kings Bay, Georgia. We have P-8 Poseidon anti-submarine planes that fly out of Jacksonville all the time, every day. You go drive up there and you can just watch these planes fly over all the time. It's where they train out of course, but it's I'm sure it had a lot to do with why they were there. They were not only just gathering information on U.S. submarine abilities, but our ability to interdict as well. So it just goes on and on. This is an article talking about, this is a year ago, talking about these research ships. It says they are interesting additions to the Russian fleet of oceanographic research ships that regularly conduct research, quote-unquote, near Western underwater infrastructure and communication cables. The 5,200-ton Yantar oceanographic research ship was completed in 2013 and reported to be equipped with these 2 deep submergence vehicles. You know, and that's what you would need to do, especially if that issue goes down in Venezuela. That's what they would do. With Panama, cut the cables. There would be no communication out of there. And it would be over before we knew it even happened. So, this is what I think they have planned. And sorry about that, but it's coming. It is absolutely coming, and I think it was just, I don't know how anyone can look at what we looked at yesterday and not see it. There's still people out there that are saying, no, this was over here and that was over there. This is what's going on. This whole thing in North Korea might just be a ruse. The North Koreans just could be doing the bidding of the Russians here and keeping us looking at that, you know, while they are planning something much bigger. Keep the 7th Fleet, you know, looking away, and meanwhile, they are setting up, you know, they could be using these submarines to go down there and put charges on all of these cables, and then one day in the future, they're just going to knock them all off at one time and cut down communications, and that's when their attack will come. And that's when they'll take everything down. And nobody was paying attention to it. I mean, it's all out there. I mean, you can look at the articles. But this last one by the Washington Post was the first thing I'd seen in a long time that actually made it into quote-unquote MSM. But it's, of course, at Christmas when nobody's going to really pay attention to it. So, who knows? You know, who knows when this would come. So, I hope everyone, it is Christmas Eve, I hope everyone has a blessed holiday. Be with your family, be with your friends. Don't dwell on this. I just wanted to do a video today to say that this is where we're going to be looking. And we are still going to be watching the issue in Central and South America, but the two things might end up meeting up. So, like, share, subscribe. Merry Christmas. We will see you next time. Thank you.